Welcome to Beneath the Wing. Just like air passing over the wing of an aircraft provides lift, the people we meet can also give us lift in life by sharing their stories of strength and success, connecting us all. Beneath the Wing explores the stories of those connected with the Minnesota Air National Guard's 133rd Airlift Wing with a little humor and learning along the way. I'm your host, Wing Command Chief Mark Legvold.
Today is December 8th, 2020, and I'm sitting in an aircraft hangar in South St. Paul, Minnesota, joined by Tech Sergeant Jim Lauria of the 133rd Airlift Wing's Maintenance Group. What's awesome is that Jim's joined me on the day that President Franklin Roosevelt made his famous speech declaring yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. It's the day that the U.S. declared war on Japan following Pearl Harbor. More importantly, today's date is a date where we got a chance to sit down literally beneath the wing of a beautiful B-25. So Jim's going to tell us a little bit about his story, his connection with this plane and the wing. So Jim, thanks for joining me on Beneath the Wing.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So let's start with this beautiful plane. Tell us a little bit about Miss Mitchell and why this type of aircraft is so important to our country's history.
Absolutely. Miss Mitchell is a B-25J. She was used, the B-25s in general were used throughout the war, every theater in multiple different capacities, everything from shipping bombing to close air support for troops to train and high-level bombing like the B-17s. And Miss Mitchell, the original Miss Mitchell, was in Italy. She flew out of Corsica in the Italian theater, and she spent the entire war bombing northern Italy and Germany, and she had no casualties on her during the war. There was one injury where a piece of another B-25 fell into the nose of Miss Mitchell, and the bombardier got hit by that piece and got a few bumps and scrapes, and that was it.
So she took good care of her crew.
She took great care of her crew.
And now you're part of the crew that takes good care of her.
Absolutely.
So tell us about the work that the Commemorative Air Force does and some of your involvement with the plane here.
We restore and display World War II aircraft. We have vehicles as well that we display. The primary mission is just get them out there, get people the opportunity to see them, smell them, hear them, watch them fly, things that you normally wouldn't get from just, the static displays you see in museums. The volunteer base is an extremely dedicated group. We're maintainers and pilots and people who have no aviation background but just have a passion for World War II and military aviation in general.
So everybody can show up here and learn a little bit of history.
Absolutely.
You got an opportunity to learn specifically about this plane from one of the original users?
Correct. The crew chief, Ray Osley, he was a member here up until the day he died. He was crew chief on the aircraft during World War II the entire time. He served under General Doolittle in the 12th Air Force through the whole war, and came out as a tech sergeant at the end of the war. He then rejoined the Minnesota wing in the 80s, helped restore Miss Mitchell, and remained crew chief up until he passed away. He trained a number of us who are still, long-term members here. It was quite an honor to be able to train under him.
I bet the stories that he told were absolutely amazing about that time.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a great storyteller in general, and he had some doozies of a story.
I'm sure. You didn't get started in the Commemorative Air Force here, though, right?
I did.
Okay.
Yes, here. I moved away for a little while.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
So I did start here in 2001.
All
So
right.
It's been almost 20 years now.
Is this where your passion for planes and aircraft started?
No, my dad worked at Northwest when I was a kid. He's an engineer. He's still doing work on various airframes. I had the opportunity to work with him, and I still work for him now occasionally and on side work. But I grew up around aviation and absolutely love it. And he was my inspiration for that, for sure.
So this is kind of a labor of love for you, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I was walking into the hangar here and got a chance to meet your wife.
Yep.
And my understanding is this is a labor of love of hers as well.
Absolutely.
In fact, a family heritage of hers.
Yes.
How many generations?
3 generations. Her grandpa was a member here. He actually wired Miss Mitchell the first time around when they were restoring it. He helped wire the whole aircraft. He ran the wiring on the whole aircraft. He was an avionics tech at Northwest. And during the war, he had a huge passion for this because during the war, he wasn't able to serve. He had a cornea transplant. He was the first person in the U.S., is our understanding, to have a cornea transplant, and the military gave him a 4F. And so he ended up working down at Holman Field doing B-24 mods. They had a giant B-24 mod base and did all the modifications for those B-24s. He always regretted not being able to serve, and so this was an opportunity for him to give back. So
And that just kept on going through the family.
Yep, her dad stayed in it. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We're doing our interview literally beneath the wing of this plane, so we're going to get some hangar noise every so often if it picks it up.
Amy's dad was a member here. He worked for Northwest for a little bit. Then he served over in Vietnam. He remained a member here, doing whatever he could, even though he lives up in Alaska.
So you stuck with the aircraft field.
Yes.
Right? And that's what you do professionally on the outside, because like I've said in a couple of our podcasts, when we talk to people that are in the Air National Guard, most of them have a full-time job that they don't wear camouflage to. So tell us a little bit about what you do on the outside world.
Currently, for the last year and a half, I've been at Atlas Air, which is a large cargo operator. We do a lot of Amazon Air packaging, UPS support, troop transport, all that kind of flying. I'm a maintenance programs engineer. I work on work cards and setting up the maintenance program for the entire fleet, making sure that all the tasks that need to get done get done.
So you don't fly the planes?
No.
You make sure that they get up and come down pretty safely, though?
Correct.
What does it take to be, you said, a flight maintenance engineer, right?
Maintenance programs engineer.
Maintenance programs engineer.
Yep.
What does it take to become one? Do you just walk off the street and become one, or do you got to work your way up?
I worked my way up. I've got a weird experience in aviation. I have no degree, but I have an A&P, and it means a lot on the outside world.
Airframe and propulsion.
Power plant.
Power plant.
But
gotcha.
Started as A&E, which is airframe and engine, and then A&P, airframe and power plant. The aviation world looks at airframe and power plant mechanics with high regard. They're trained. People take them very seriously. I have a little bit of background with writing and managed to work my way into a tech writer job at Northwest. Delta, I became a programs engineer. I had worked my way up through the Northwest and Delta ranks, and then finally got to Atlas here.
So as an A&P, licensed tech, you were turning wrenches?
I have turned wrenches. It's been a long time.
I'll bet. So now you're more of a technical writer?
Yes.
What do you miss turning wrenches? Is that what feeds your soul, is coming here? I
get to turn wrenches here. More of my time here is actually spent inspecting. I get to turn wrenches every now and then here. I get to do it at the Guard. I love going to the Guard and turning wrenches there as well.
So, speaking of the Guard, you and I are two not young men sitting around a table having a conversation.
Correct.
And you've been in the Guard a lot less time than I have been. You went to basic training when you were 30 years old.
Yes.
Why did you do that?
So the whole story started with Northwest and the buyout of Delta, by Delta. When Delta bought us out, my dream job was always Northwest. My dad worked there. I wanted to work there. I had my dream job. My wife and my dad and I all worked together. It was wonderful. And then Delta bought us. And everything started getting pieced out in the engineering section, which is what I was in. Got passed down to Atlanta, and we weren't willing to move, mostly because of the CAF here. We went contract for a while for Delta, and during that time, my wife's got asthma, which is the main reason why she didn't join at the same time. She's got some medical issues that she deals with, so we were trying to figure out what we were going to do with medical insurance. And one of the things that I had always regretted as a younger man was not joining the military. My grandpa had talked to me about joining the military, and he thought it would be a good path for me. And I didn't do it. I kind of made my own path. I'm happy with where I made that path, but at that time it was a good transition period for me. I had a choice to make, and I decided, well, I don't know where I'm going to go next, and this seems like a good option for me. And you know, I knew a number of guys in the Guard already through the CAF mostly. Andy Piazza, Melissa Piazza, Jason McNeil. They were all people I had met when I was younger, and I started talking to them about it and made the choice to go.
And Melissa was your recruiter.
She was.
So not only a friend of yours, but then she got you into this mess.
Correct.
So she's the one that you get to blame.
Yes. Yes,
And
indeed.
the fun thing about the Air National Guard is there is that family element where everybody is either related or they know somebody who's related to somebody else.
Absolutely.
Which makes it a whole lot of fun. And I think back to those days in basic training where you show up and you stand on the yellow footprints.
Yep.
Down at Lackland. And the one thing that I remember about that is talking to myself and saying, everybody here has something in common with me. We were all pretty much the same age, and we all came from all over the country, but we were all a little scared, not knowing what we got into, and but had that same age-ish kind of thing.
Right.
What was it like going through basic training with a bunch of, let's just call them kids, folks that were 10 years younger than you?
Yeah, 19 was kind of the average age at the time, and I enjoyed it. My perspective, it was a lot easier in my mind to be able to handle the military discipline and that side of things, getting screamed at and everything. It didn't faze me nearly as much as it fazed them, but kind of fun to be the old man in the group and someone they could come talk to and someone they could vent to, and enjoyed being around them and watching them kind of learn and gain and get better from it.
Did you take on kind of a father figure role there?
To some people, yep. There was another recruit who was also 30 in my group.
Okay.
And we were largely reserve and guard. We were more than half reserve and guard members, and so there was another guy. He took on basically half the guys, and I took on the other half. And we were in separate bays, so we were taking on that separate group.
I'm sure your training instructors, who were probably younger than you,
They were.
really appreciated the extra mentorship that you guys were able to do, but still, they had to keep a line between you, right?
They did. However, my training, we had a turnover of training instructors. Our initial training instructor, a female, she found out she was pregnant in the middle of our training, so she had to move to CQ at the time, and then another training instructor took over. He was 2 years younger than I was, and out of respect, he called me sir because I was older than him.
But that threw everybody for a loop for a while.
For a loop, yep.
Oh my goodness. So you've been in the Guard now for, what is it, about 8 years?
8 years, yes.
8
It'll be
years.
9 in April.
Okay, you're going to stick around with us for a little while, right?
That's my plan.
That is a good plan.
Yeah.
What is it about being in the Guard? I mean, going from basic training and then you go to aircraft maintenance school, I assume in Shepherd, Texas,
Shepherd,
right? Shepherd
yes.
Air Force Base. And you learn how to turn wrenches on planes.
Yes.
And you've been doing that for a long time.
I had. I'd been doing it for 12 years. At that point, it was 12 years since I had started A&P school and started here at the CAF. And so, yeah, it was an interesting and truncated experience for me.
Did you ever say to them, this is not how they did it during World War II, and I know a guy that actually has?
Never came up on that front. We did talk about my experience on the outside at the time, and it came up a few times. I ended up teaching a few courses, and I basically became an instructor support for the group until they said go home.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they sent me home a month early because they didn't need to keep me there at that point.
You knew enough.
Yep.
Yep. And now most of the stuff that we do in the Air Force, in the maintenance community, is kind of stovepiped in specialty areas, right?
Yes.
So when you're A&P licensed, you can work on all the airframe and
Power plant.
I keep wanting to say propulsion, but,
It's same idea. We called it
Okay.
propulsion at Northwest. So that's
but with
fine.
us, you're stovepiped and you only do one thing. We have specialists.
Correct.
Right? What is your specialty?
Power plant.
Okay, so you work on the engines.
Yes.
And at the 133rd, we fly C-130s.
Yes.
So 4 engines.
Yes.
And they're almost as complex as what's sitting behind me here, or?
Very similar in a number of different ways. Jets, the jet portion of the C-130, it's fairly easy. Once you get into the gearboxes and some of the peripheral items, it gets tougher. And then props aren't something normal for the airline industry now. So a lot of guys haven't seen it. But this B-25 prop, the Hydromatic Hamilton Standard, is the same prop that we use on the C-130s. It's just bigger, has hydraulic fluid instead of engine oil.
Oh,
So it's just the precursor to it.
I'm sure you never get confused with one or the other on drill weekends when you're out.
Oh, whoops. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a wrong one. It's called this over here.
There you go. But it's, do you find it to be a passion when you come into the Guard and work on our C-130s? Is that's still a thrill?
Yes. Yeah. The times I get to spend working and it's how tough it is at training and all the CBTs and everything that we have to do. But the time we get to go out and actually work on the aircraft is always enjoyable, and it's fun, really fun working with some of the newer airmen, some of the guys that just got into the shop and helping them step from their initial 3 months of training that they got at Shepherd to, okay, this is how this works, this is how that works, and answering questions and helping them move forward. That's been kind of more of my role lately, and it's been a lot of fun. So
it's great working with the people that are just coming in.
It is.
That's probably the most fun that I have, is when you have somebody that is really eager, wants to learn, wants to become a part of the culture and the climate.
Absolutely.
And then on top of that, do the really terrific jobs that we have.
Yeah.
So speaking of the jobs, I interviewed Colonel Scar,
Okay.
who used to be the maintenance group commander,
Yes.
so basically in charge of everything maintenance at our wing. And I asked him a question about the idea of, do we have true craftsmen anymore? And would you consider the idea that the people that are working on aircraft are true experts in their trade, craftsmen, or do you think they're artists?
There is a definite difference there. Sheet metal guys have the tendency to be artists. There's a different thought process. Me being a capable sheet metal person, I can speak a little to that. It's a different thought process, and it takes a little bit more finesse, and it's an art form to get that sheet metal shaped the way you want it. The engine guys, the hydraulic guys, tend to be on the craftsman side of things, and they have their own form of the artwork that goes into it, but the trade and the knowledge base is the important part. Knowing what to do when the engine isn't running right, that's the craftsman side of it for people. Aviation, as a general rule, has both. You've got the craftsmen and you've got the artists, and all the way around, both are massively important.
Fantastic. There is a place for everybody.
Absolutely.
In the shop.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and having those problem-solving skills or a good, solid checklist.
Right.
It takes a little bit of both.
Yes.
You get to write the checklists, though.
I do.
So do you consider yourself more of an artist or more of a craftsman?
On that front, it takes more of an art thought process, writing and the background into that. At the same time, you still need that knowledge base to understand, what is this going to affect down the road. I spend my time just digging through regulations, digging through, background info, and then looking at the actual parts and saying, okay, well, this makes sense or this doesn't make sense. So sometimes craftsman, sometimes artist. Just
Sure.
depends on the task.
So when you're doing your checks, because everybody's got to do a check on a check, and you do a lot of that quality assurance
Yes.
stuff, what are you double checking on most aircraft that's not necessarily a huge safety check, but because your experience is as a mechanic, people might forget to look at it the first time around?
Ooh, safety wire, that's always the first and foremost.
What's a safety wire?
Okay, safety wire. So bolts and screws and fasteners that are drilled so that they can take wire through them and it gets attached to another bolt or another spot within the aircraft. It prevents the bolt or screw from turning out, keeps it from coming apart. It's really easy. It's something that you have to take off to change an assembly or something like that, and then you have to reinstall it. And it's real easy to put it in backwards, put it in too loose, any number of things. So that's usually the first stopping point is, did they break any safety wire? If they did, check the safety wire first. So
There's a lot of safety wire on an airplane.
a lot of safety wire.
Were they using safety wire back in World War II?
Absolutely.
World War I?
World War I, I'm not sure. I think, yes, they were. I'm thinking back to a Gnome engine, and they did have it on the Gnome engine.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Awesome. I do mechanic work out on the farm, and hey,
Sure.
if it's tight enough to hold, it's tight enough to go. So,
Yep. You got, well, you're going to stop there if your engine quits. You'll
Yep.
stop right over there, and we're not going to stop right over
No,
there.
it's quite a ways down from
Yes.
where you're up there.
Right.
Hey, I've been talking with Jim Lauria of the 133rd Maintenance Group here at the Commemorative Air Force hangar, and after this message, we're going to be right back. Stick around.
Happy holidays, everybody. I am Sergeant Todd, your friendly 133rd Airlift Wing recruiter. Our sign-on bonus job listing has just dropped $15,000. So if you know any non-prior service or prior service members that are looking to serve with the mighty 133rd, please drop me a line, 612-505-6799. Again, our job listing for our sign-on bonuses, $15,000 has just dropped. So if you know anyone interested in serving, please have them call me, 612-505-6799, and we'll see what they qualify for. Thank you.
Thanks, Sergeant Todd, for that awesome message. And hey, there's always room in the Guard for another new recruit that's motivated to come in. I've been sitting here in the hangar of the Commemorative Air Force beneath the wing of a World War II B-25 with Jim Lauria of the 133rd Airlift Wings Maintenance Group. And during our commercial break, we just took a little bit of time and totally geeked out about planes, time in the Guard, all the good things that go on around here, and a little bit more of the story. So again, I appreciate you joining me today to talk a little bit, share your story.
Absolutely, sir.
So you've got a chance to travel a lot. I understand both you and your wife love seeing different places, seeing the country, but on top of that, as a part of the Guard, you've gone to some pretty interesting spots too as a maintainer.
Absolutely. I've loved going on the trips and meeting the people on the trips and gotten to go all over the world.
Where's the best place you've gone?
Antarctica.
Okay, tell me about that.
It was fantastic. When we traveled down to New Zealand to start out, Christchurch, a number of us from the 133rd Maintenance Group got to go. A few guys got out early. Myself and Chief Goosens actually got stuck in New Zealand for a week. It was terrible. Just every morning we would wake up and we waited to see if we were going to get on a C-17 that morning and fly down to Antarctica. Every morning we'd get a slip of paper under the door that said, nope, you're not going today, take the day off. And we just hiked around Christchurch and got to see everything downtown and spent a lot of time just hanging out there and enjoying the sights. After 7 days, the slip came under the door, get ready to go, and got on a C-17 and flew down to Antarctica. Stepped off, you have to gear up, put all your cold weather gear on, and you don't know, you're thinking about all this and how cold it is, and you get off the airplane and it's 30 degrees and it's snowy, but it's dry, 30, sun's out, and it really was fairly pleasant.
It was just like Minnesota.
Just like Minnesota.
Except
Actually,
you're upside down in the world.
right, right, absolutely. It's actually, I felt warmer down there, and while I was down there, it was October, November, and it was colder in Minnesota than it was down in Antarctica. That first night, after a beer or two, walked outside, took a picture in my T-shirt, because I'm in Antarctica in a T-shirt.
You might as well.
Exactly.
Right. What were we doing in Antarctica?
The 109th, the New York Schenectady Guard Unit, they have the LC-130s, which are the ski version, Ski-Bird C-130s. They support the NSF, the National Science Foundation. We're down there maintaining aircraft on the ice, on a glacier out in the ocean, maintaining C-130s, supporting the NSF to fly people around the continent, including the South Pole and various other places, outstations. Supplies that way, and people and equipment and all that stuff. It all goes on C-130. And then smaller aircraft as well that are civilian contracted. But C-130s they bring the food, so they love the C-130 down there.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
All the food and all the good supplies.
Absolutely.
And it's because our being the Air Force, our aircraft are specially designed and our pilots are specially trained to do that type of mission, which is why we're supporting that, right?
Correct. Yep. C-130 is an awesome platform for that kind of work, and the C-17 can go down there for a little while. It's got a window on the front end and the back end. C-130 just plows through the whole time and keeps going. Goes to that South Pole at negative 50 to negative 100 degrees, and they got to keep the engines running just so it doesn't break down there. They drop stuff off, pick stuff up, turn around, and head home.
Awesome. Sounds like a great experience.
It was.
You've also done a lot of traveling with the Commemorative Air Force. In fact,
I have.
on this plane, right?
Yes, on everything here.
A couple times to Ohio.
Yep.
One of them was kind of a special trip out there, right?
Most, yes. The Ohio trips were generally very special. We got to honor the Doolittle Raiders. I went with Miss Mitchell in 2010, 2012, and 2017. They had a gathering of B-25s for each one of those. The first one, we had 16 B-25s. The second one, 25 B-25s. And the third one, 20 B-25s.
Why did it get less?
Just operators that could either not support it financially or broken or whatever reason.
There's still quite a few of these planes flying today, aren't there?
43 total, though we lost one last year, so 42 total right now. So,
right. It's an incredible plane, and I cannot imagine flying all the way out to Ohio on this. Right before we got on the podcast here, Jim let me crawl around in this beautiful cramped closet of an aircraft, and you just get to experience what 6 human beings did during the war, and how closed up of a space, and I'm sure hours and hours of boredom filled or kind of bookended with a few minutes of sheer terror.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. It's for us to be able to fly it now and ride in them, experience them in skies that you're not getting shot at. You don't have enemy fighters coming on at you. It's very enjoyable, but imagining it during the war, it's pretty sobering up there.
Absolutely. They did a bunch of traveling during World War II, and you said that the best view out of this plane isn't out of the nose, is it?
No, it's out of the tail gunner position.
Why do you think? Why is that the best spot?
It's just isolated. You're back where you're facing backwards. You've got nothing behind you, and you just look out over the landscape of where you've been. From a view standpoint, it's gorgeous. From a terror standpoint during the war, I can't imagine.
Yeah, I can't either. It was crawling up there. It was a little cramped and a little crowded, but I could see how that's just what a great view.
Yeah,
what an awesome thing to be able to do. Flying out to Ohio, was that the best experience you've had traveling?
I would consider it one of my top experiences with the CAF especially. Yes, we got to meet a lot of public who were there to see the Doolittle Raiders and the B-25 was the star of the show, all of the B-25s together. I got to enjoy, meeting the Doolittle Raiders and having drinks with them. We ended up having dinner with their families. Adam Galloway actually came on that trip too. He's one of our pilots at the 133rd.
Fantastic.
But we got to enjoy sitting down with the families and the Raiders in all by ourselves, and having drinks with them and speaking with them, and that was fantastic. That was 2010 when there were still 5. 2012 there were 3 left. By 2017 there was 1, and he passed away last year.
Yep, that's what I understand. We just lost our last Doolittle Raider.
Yep, Dick Cole. Yeah, he was Jimmy Doolittle's co-pilot.
Oh, amazing.
So, yeah,
the stories, right?
Absolutely.
The one section of our podcast that I always got a drinking question.
Sure.
So here's what I'm kind of imagining, because we're sitting here under this plane that, Doolittle, he had this weird plan to take this big airplane off of a aircraft carrier.
Yep.
And the guy's he's probably an artist when it comes to flying.
Oh,
absolutely. The craftsman. But I see you probably sitting around having a glass of scotch with Jimmy Doolittle, right?
You nailed it pretty well.
Why wouldn't we, right? So let's just say you guys are sitting around on a Saturday afternoon drinking scotch, and he is time traveled to our time here.
Yep.
Where would you take him? What would you do?
Oh,
after you've had the scotch and found somebody to drive you responsibly. How about that?
Right.
What would you do?
Oh, that's a good question. To show Jimmy Doolittle something, I think, he's been back in the day, but showing him Oshkosh, the air show in the end of July, that would be an enjoyable thing. I got to do that with Dick Cole. I drove him around for a week at Oshkosh, and that was an unbelievable experience. I'd like to go out to the Mojave where they're doing the Spaceship Two trials and some of the new stuff as far as spaceport type of work, the cutting edge of aviation, and see some of the things that are going on. And I think that would be something that would be great to experience with him.
What do you think he would think of where we've come?
Where we've come, I think there'd be a part of him that's impressed and a part of him that just thinks there are too many rules. He was the master of the calculated risk. Rules didn't apply to him, so he was he made his own rules for everything, and he did a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't have done as well.
We were walking around before we started our podcast, and with all the different aircraft that are sitting out here in the hangar, I think I made that comment where, just the amount of innovation that had to happen out of necessity during that time is absolutely incredible. And there were fewer rules.
Yes.
But there were also a lot more accidents and terrible tragedies and everything else. But at the same time, calculated risk.
Right.
It just got so much stuff happened, so much learning happened because of the awful necessity.
Absolutely.
Have we lost our ability to be innovative because of a lack of necessity?
I've heard yes. I don't think that's the case. You see, the work being done, especially with the space program right now, and we're seeing privatized space program work. There are rules, of course, to be followed there, but they all came from, it's warnings and cautions. We talk about in maintenance warnings and cautions. They're written in blood. We've experienced a lot in the last 100 years of flight, and it really, has kind of brought us to this point where we're trying to be as safe as possible. But there are still people out there that are pushing the envelope, and they're being given the rope they need to get out there and either make it work or hang themselves. And that's kind of where you have to be to innovate. You got to be on that ragged edge.
So, as a mechanic, as a guy around aircraft, you're constantly coming up with inventive ways of changing how aircraft and machines could be more efficient. Efficiency seems to be the thing.
Right.
For any gearheads out there, what what innovation do you really, or invention would you propose to make aircraft more efficient? Where do you think that cutting edge is?
Oh, my expectation for aircraft in the next, few decades, I expect less pilots. I was taught early on by Jason McNeil. He was one of my first mentors, and he taught me that the mechanic's job is to, keep the pilot from killing himself. They will find the fastest and cheapest way to do so. And no offense to any pilots, because we all know it's the mechanics versus the pilots, and it's the age-old game. The way that aviation is headed, especially cargo, which is where I'm at right now. I expect to see a push towards a single pilot in the future, with commercial cargo operations, things like that. I don't know that it's necessarily the right way to go, but I can see the benefits, and I can also see some pitfalls with it. From the rest of it, it all becomes, it's a difference, it's a trade-off now. We're getting so close to, the zero-sum cheapest way to fly. Now it's about reliability. How do we make them as reliable as possible while flying at the cheapest level? Or do we start heading the other direction again and start going faster? And I've seen different, articles talking about different operators who are headed back toward that, subsonic or supersonic transport, thought process. Do we go there? Do we stay where we're at? And I personally, fast flight is always a great thing. There's always a place for slow flight. It's fun. In the C-130's case, it can take the beating and it can get in anywhere and get out of anywhere. So it's got its strong suits for doing slow flight. But fast flight, I think, is it's worth a shot again.
Mm-hmm. It sure is fun, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
All right, let's do some quick questions.
Sure.
Here's the rules. I'll ask you a quick question, one word, maybe two-word answer at best, but first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
All right. Zombies or robots?
Oh, I'd much rather deal with robots.
Robots or aliens?
I'd much rather deal with aliens.
C-130 or B-25?
B-25.
Oh, I agree. Movie that made you cry?
Many do, but I like Hard was like Marley and Me. I think that's the last one that pops into my head. That's a while ago.
Good call. Aerosmith or Snoop Dogg?
Aerosmith.
Scotch or light beer?
Scotch.
Yeah, I kind of figured you would say that one. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Flight.
Like one person flying?
No airplane, just by myself.
Just you and yourself.
Yep.
Traveling along.
Yep.
I think that would be the best.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to the store.
Yep.
No car.
Just go.
Fantastic. So we've been dealing with COVID restrictions for quite a while.
Yes.
You're a traveler.
Yes.
Both you and your wife like to travel.
Yeah.
Where should I go on vacation when this is all over? Because I know you've been a lot of places.
I've been a lot of places.
Yep.
We were headed back to Italy in September, and we missed out on that. I love Italy. Everything about Italy is great, and right now they could use the support after the COVID, hit them so hard. New Zealand was fantastic. That'd be the other place that I'd look at. My wife hasn't been there, and she really wants to go now too. And New Zealand was pretty awesome.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
We'll have to do both, I think.
I think that's a good plan.
So we've talked a lot about history, and you've had a lot of chance to mentor and guide some of the newer airmen joining our Air Guard.
Yes.
And we've talked a lot about past and future in flight. What do you think we have to learn from the past that is worth hanging on to?
Oh, I mean, so many things, everything. There, the ramifications of people's behavior, politically and otherwise. But as we start getting into the individuals that flew these airplanes, especially, their mentality towards the country and their steadfastness against something that they thought, was wrong, and they decided to stand up and say, yeah, despite the odds, which were not good odds, I'm going to go do this and fight for my country. And it's so different for the way they fought versus the way we fought. And I don't, sidetracking a little bit, a discussion that I've had is understanding the idea that when our C-130s go out on a mission from Kuwait and they get, drops up near Syria or, landing in Iraq or anything like that, when we were there in 17, they all came home, and it was an expectation that they all came home. These guys, especially coming from a maintenance standpoint, these guys watched their friends take off, and the pilots, they got in an airplane and they took off, and they were flying next to hundreds of their friends, and they would get half the guys home at the end of it, and almost impossible to imagine. We send 8 C-130s, we get 4 back, and the rest are just gone. That just is an impossibility to a lot of us. And just thinking about that kind of, just heroism and the ability to go up and do that day in and day out is just incredible. So I think more than anything, just thinking about those guys and what they were capable of and trying to live up to that is huge.
Because they were busy standing up for something that was right.
Right.
In
Yes.
the face of wrong.
Yep. Absolutely.
Jim Lauria, this has been a pleasure. Thanks for sitting down with me on Beneath the Wing and giving us a great snapshot of history on this historic day.
Yep. Thank you.
But also a great snapshot of who you are and what you do for our group. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.